Hello, welcome to our midweek edition of the TVC Breakfast Show from the Business Desk. It's now time to bring you our feature on the show today. Now, it's barely 48 hours and more reactions still trail the global economy loss of billions of dollars as Facebook, WhatsApp and Instagram went down in the evening on Monday, with many waking up at dawn on Tuesday to see the outage was over. According to NetBlocks, which tracks internet outages and their impact, the outage had already cost the global economy about $160 million per hour. Facebook stocks had also gone down by about 5.5%, and the chief executive officer of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, also lost nearly $7 billion when the outage began. Well, joining me now live in our Lagos studio to discuss this and much more, I have Joseph Agumbiade, the co-founder of Budget. Good to have you on the Breakfast Show this morning.
Thank you.
Now, which team do you fall under? Those who had to reboot their devices, those who had to check the data subscription, or just wonder if government was meddling in all of this? Because this is not the first time we're having such. But on a global scale now, the shock, the reaction is a phenomenon that was general. This isn't the first time we're having such happening. In 2019, we had about 24-hour shutdown. This is about 6-7 hours. What was your first reaction to this shock?
I think I belong to the three categories. And naturally, that is what everyone would have done. But what shocked me the most was I was thinking maybe government actually shut down WhatsApp. It was WhatsApp at first that I noticed, but it just goes to show that technology in itself has its limitations. It can just, anything can just happen. I mean, it was just simple. It was a configuration issue. And we read that it actually impacted Facebook internally. So it wasn't just so much about we, the users. It was also an internal impact. It had such a level of impact. So it was a real stuff. I mean, almost 6 hours. And even after they came up, there were still a couple of issues. Yes, so it was a serious problem, and it just goes to show that technology in itself, it's not everything.
Well, it's not everything, but to a very large extent, humans remain very social beings, and with the outage, it saw so many people looking out for alternatives to chat. Your phone literally became a shadow of itself because you didn't have the regular social media platforms to chat through. Now, did this come to you as a surprise that each to look for alternatives? We've seen when we had the Twitter suspension, immediately people started looking out for VPNs and other browsers that could possibly support Twitter, and then now we just had to look for others. That was when I started hearing new names of Signal and other social media platforms. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, talking about being social being, it's so funny that our lives has changed dramatically since social media came in. We've now moved most part of our lives on social media. And that is why you see a family gather together around the table to eat. Nobody's talking to themselves. They're actually just on their mobile phone. Our life has changed. And, occasions like this just help us it reminds us that we're human. And, there were several reactions, to business, to individuals, to being social, and, the overall impact that this has, left us, with. So what I think is that technology has fully become part of us, and we cannot deny it. And people need to know that. And that is why things like, decluttering, trying to, checking ourselves from time to time, mental health. I have a very, very good friend, Dr. Memuna. She's an advocate of mental health. She started, immediately after that, she started posting and asking if you are okay, check yourself. Because I believe some people might actually lose it, that moment. People have created their lives. You see a lot of introverted people. Is social media has actually given them some sort of voice and all that. So, yeah, people were losing sanity within that short time. I know my own part, but somehow I was able to, survive it. But I'm sure if we do more investigation, you discover that people that this has actually impacted very negatively.
And it just felt like we were in a black hole, for example. So many just felt like, what's going on? Why can't I just contact people? Why can't I just look at updates on social media and a whole lot more? But now, talking about serious business, there are so many businesses that are also cited online. Now, this raises the question of whether it's good enough to have your online shops, because there are businesses that just run on online shops, not necessarily have websites, but they have Instagram pages and Facebook pages, and that's where the bulk of the businesses go on. And it was a panic frenzy for such individuals. they now had to start thinking again, what do we do in such a situation? For businesses that heavily rely on technology such as this, in the worst case scenario where this goes for about 24 hours, if it happens again like 2019, what do you think businesses would have to do as their biggest shock absorber?
Man, it is...
Because user experience is at stake and you can lose your stocks just like Facebook.
It's even serious than what you just described, because apart from using social media platform as a means of selling, I mean, you know, for you as a business, you can even say, oh, use a temporary shutdown and all that. There are so many services that have now been tied to social media. They provide APIs for signing into applications. And people who live in smart environments, smart home. In fact, someone joked that there were people in virtual, using the Oculus Rift, virtual Quest 2, that probably were hooked, were hanged there for a bit, And, when you look at the trend of technology, there are so many, more and more, we're getting dependent on it. So single sign-on is basically using Facebook to log into an app.
Multiple.
Yes, and there are a lot of people that the only medium they use to sign into all the various apps they use is social media. So a situation like this, where the three most powerful platform actually went down, it's a very, very serious one. And so what is showing us, and in business, what is teaching us is that we need to start thinking of alternatives. We can't exclusively just depend on social media. You need to now have a website, you need to have backup system in place, and there's a fundamental technology change that must happen, which is that if platforms are using single sign-on, the person should be able to sign on even when the platform is not available. It's something that does not exist right now. So if I use Facebook to create an account on a platform that uses Facebook as a login, if this ever happens, I won't be able to get in. But if it is email, if Gmail is down, I can still sign in because it's logged my information.
Exactly.
But when you're using single sign-on, that information is not necessarily, it's just a token that is stored on the website. It's not necessarily stored there. So you must wait. Facebook must be working for it to work. That's how critical it has become.
Let's also bring a bit into focus the president's October 1st speech as well, stating conditions and then saying that we're going to see a little bit of change in the body language in terms of the acceptance of Twitter, and the lines of engagement are also getting a little clearer. What do you make of this whole body language of the federal government? Now, initially it was a different tone, and now it says, well, sooner than later would have Twitter back as well. We also had so many businesses that were heavily reliant on Twitter. How do you think this would also change the narrative, or also lighten the mood, or warm up investors to still look at Nigeria one more time as a tech space that they ought to invest in?
So first thing is, I'd like to comment on the nonchalance of government on the fact that turning off Twitter has really impacted businesses to a large extent. There were businesses that were exclusively built on Twitter. There was a guy who got hired by Twitter because he built a bot on Twitter, So then looking at the fact that they want to change it, I mean, I'm waiting. It should happen so fast. I believe that somehow, if that happens, it will somehow, for the investors that have not left, it will somehow give them some level of confidence. But I think when we're making these decisions, we should always think about it,
the ripple effect.
Yes, and ensure that we don't have to. And now, I mean, they want to restore it. They should restore it. We're waiting. Like people, the generation of the guys in leadership, they need to understand how much impact this has on us.
And time is fleeting.
Yes.
And now, talking about the impact of this outage, away from the president's speech now, how do you see us encouraging more indigenous tech contents and platforms? It's a two-way question now. Do you think we don't have that mindset, or we're not open enough, or have the resource base or the intellectual capacity or the ideas or hunch to have such platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and a whole lot more social media platforms? Or it's just an issue of it wouldn't work here?
I mean, if those the ones that are coming from outside Nigeria, if it can work, that means it can also work here. But there's a challenge which is fundamental. The platform didn't work just because it was built in Silicon Valley. It worked because in Silicon Valley there are resources. When you build platforms like that, if you build, the first thing is that if it's very good, you're likely going to get into Y Combinator. When you get into Y Combinator, they will tell you that for you to get it funded, you have to be in Silicon Valley. All right, and it's a clear thing. It's a business case. The question is, how much can you make to even sustain the level of generosity. Talking about Facebook and all that is because we are the product, right? And they know how to monetize, to turn us into the product by giving us all so much powerful tool for free. So locally we cannot, because there are no local fundings. I must tell you the truth. The kind of money that is available here for tech investment is very little. Those guys, once they build a platform that shows a level of promise, you see people throwing millions of dollars at them. And that is one of the things. In the past, a lot of people have attempted building social media platform in Nigeria. It didn't work out. In fact, in the beginning, early days of Twitter, around 2010, there was a guy, Ahmad Mukoshe, the guy that runs Gigalea. He tried to build, I think, Yan or something. It's not so much about a technology problem, because you can always hire talent. The question is, do you have the money to pay them?
There is.
Yes, and there's more. Why has Facebook or social media become very addictive, which is why it is even a thing in the first place? You see these guys having hundreds of psychologists. You have PhD holders who are basically focusing on and discussing, taking just a single vertical, around what they do there. Facebook gives a lot of fellowships. It is those research work that actually they keep reintegrating and makes them more and more powerful. So we don't have that. So I don't think that will happen. Maybe we can have things like Nairaland. Nairaland didn't even build the platform. It's an open source PHP BB or something that they installed, and the most powerful part of it is the fact that people keep engaging on the platform. But there's not even seen a major technological growth. I don't think they've really harnessed the amount of data. If they have, for the age of Nairaland, for example, the guy should be a multi-millionaire in dollars. So we don't have what it takes. Let me not say we don't have what it takes. We don't have. We cannot put in the adequate resources, the right investment. We don't even have the billionaire who can invest into that.
So such an initiative is dead on arrival, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't say that people who are thinking of doing stuff like that shouldn't try it.
But just have at the back of your mind a heavy investment plan. Yeah, it
takes more than just technology. There's money, there's human resource. And these are money that is, we'll call play money that the investor is not on your neck. You get, because it might work, I might not work.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Thank you very much for your time on the Breakfast Show this morning, Joseph Agumbiade. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. We've been speaking with the co-founder of Budget. Thank you once again.
Thanks a lot.